Okay, so we're here with Annette Lynch
Hello.
today, and we're going to talk to Annette about her recollections of the store and a few other things as well.
Thank you.
But first of all, we just wanted to start with some biographical details. So if you could maybe just state where you were born and where you grew up and your thoughts about that.
Well, I was born in Mayfield, in Hanbury Street, and actually I do some art things in a place quite opposite where I was born, so I can look out on that whenever I want to, that place. I grew up, of course, there. I grew up in Mayfield, and so I've got a real attachment to Mayfield, really love Mayfield. And as I say, I go back there every week, actually twice a week, in the pursuit of doing some arty things. Yeah. And I went to school in Mayfield. I went to school at the Catholic St. Columbanus Primary, St. Clemente Senior School, and left school after the intermediate when I was 15. And then I got a job. I got a job at the lamp works. I worked as what they called a photometric electrical laboratory assistant, which was just testing the lamps to make sure they were good. They were good. And but when I had intentions of becoming a nurse, so when I was 17, I went into training, and 4 years of training at the Mater, and I still have friends who trained with me. I still have friends who were at school with me. So anyway, I did some work around the Mater. I went to Royal Melbourne Hospital and worked there for a little while, and then I went to. I decided what I really would like though was a 9 to 5 job. So I looked into the community and decided that baby health centres I would like. So I became a baby health centre sister, and that's where I spent most of my working life. It was very good, and made lots of friends there too. Lovely job, really. So that brought me up to retirement in about 1991, and I was living still at Mayfield, and I was interested still in learning things. So University of Third Age, and one of our teachers was this nice man. Well, first of all, I didn't think he was nice because he wasn't interested in one of my historical people, but actually he was lovely, Don Barker, and we, after a few years, got married, and he had discovered the West End, and even though there was nobody else living here much at that time, we actually bought. First, he bought one cottage and I bought the other, so I was the girl next door. Anyway, we had two cottages there, and saw the West End starting to become a bit gentrified, because when we first came it wasn't, and people thought we were down on our luck coming in here, and there wasn't any neighbours. They'd all be commercial people, and they'd go off on 5 o'clock, or at weekends there was nobody around. The place was a bit of a tip at that stage. Across the road there, lots of people used to just put their rubbish near the railway, but Don said to the railway people, if you got rid of that rubbish, I could do a garden. And so they sort of were delighted, because they thought he was going to demand things off them. Just get rid of the rubbish was fine. So Don started a garden over there, and of course I got involved, and over the years we had a really nice garden, and I have got pictures of that too. But of course you're interested in the store. And of course, right from my mother was a store member, and as soon as I left school, she took me into the store and I became a store member. And that was typical. It was mostly they were women who were the people who got involved. And I was saying to Anne, I'd heard a quote from Jim Comerford, and he'd said that his mother, when he first got married, she'd taken her new daughter-in-law into their store, which would have been up Cessnock. Of course, the cooperative stores were all over the place. And she had said to her daughter-in-law, these men have got to fight their battles of strikes and putting up for the right thing, but we've got to keep people fed, and the store will always stick by you. And that's what they did. There were strikes, or there were lockouts, or there were different things, and the store would just let people book things up and you'd just go on. But anyway, in my early days, I remember the store because they were doing everything. The store building was there, what I say is the new one, because I've got a picture of the old one. The store building was there, and they sold everything. Things that I had no interest in, but still they sold things they sold petrol. That's what I'd had no interest in because I didn't have a car. But the baker would come. As I say, you put in an order, but then you could come in and buy things, also groceries here at the store. Eventually, most of the suburbs had stores too, where they'd have a supermarket, but I think that would have been later. But to start with, they had a store where you'd book things up, and you got a dividend, and it was in the pound. When I'm looking at the book, I thought, well, it must have been a shilling in the pound, but I thought it was 2 shillings. Well, it was different things at different times, according to how their profits were going, I suppose. But anyway, you got a dividend. And people would sometimes save that dividend indefinitely. A lot of people would take it to pay off something, maybe to buy something. But there were people who left the money in there to pay off their daughter's wedding reception. And because they had a wedding reception hall there, which you know all about that one. But anyway, lots of people it was a very handy thing. It was like a little savings thing where you could take the money out after a certain time. And but anyway, the store had horses where they had stables at Clyde Street. And so a lot of these deliveries and things were with the horses coming. So the horses were trotting around, and as I say, people didn't really have to go out very much to shop very far. The corner shop, they do their corner shop, and then they would, but most of the things, a lot of people got at the store. And you could get your underwear, you could get all your dresses, and they never had any rubbish. That was the other thing people would say. Everything was good quality. Hence, it wasn't cheap. And when the supermarkets started to come in, a lot of people they didn't have to wait 6 months or so for a dividend. They wanted the savings now. And so the store possibly went into a bit of recline, but they still tried to develop a bit with the times and had their supermarkets places. Because I lived in Mayfield, and there was a very good store in Mayfield too. And anyway, as I say, there were other things that they sold. Travel agency, though you didn't get dividend on that. But I know I organised an overseas trip through the store. I was going to tell you that Christmas around the store was really quite beautiful too. Their store windows were done wonderfully well, and planned months and months before. They'd have to get all the things made and done and etc. So the store windows, as were some of the other windows too, they'd compete a bit to have lovely windows. But the store was outstanding.
So who had the best windows?
I reckon.
The store had the best windows?
Yes, they did have the best windows. And also too, this was perhaps later because I can't remember going to a Christmas party there, but I know when my sister came down from Brisbane, one of the things we'd organised for her children would be that they would go to the Christmas party, but you had to book them in, and so it was like a little feast for children, plus Santa Claus and all of those things. Yeah. And when the store actually closed, I do remember, I don't know whether it was Wynn's or David Jones, had a window done out, R.I.P. the store.
It was David Jones.
Was it?
Yeah. They also ran an ad in the
Yes.
Herald,
About the store.
About the store, supporting the store.
Yeah.
So,
So
I guess you basically had an association with the store through
childhood.
From childhood.
Yeah.
So was your earliest recollection of the store when you joined up at?
No, because I can remember going in with my mother even as a little tot, because she used to go into the store and she walk up the street to pay other bills. At Lights, I don't know if anybody's mentioned Lights, they were a furniture place, and apparently it was anyway, they never charged interest. They charged a big deposit and a big repayment, but there was no interest being paid by people. So Lights would be something, the domestic to pay off a sewing machine, all the things as going up the street, paying different bills, electricity and gas. And so maybe we'd go to the pictures. Anyway, so I do have early memories of going shopping with my mother in the trams, the old-fashioned trams that they took off.
And how often would you go to the store? How often would you do that?
Oh, probably that would be about fortnightly or so. And ladies, they would get dressed up, with their hats and gloves. And even though war years, they'd still maintain that, stockings and the rest of it. And anyway, ladies used to meet at the store because they had that beautiful a cafeteria area too, where they would, you could get food and have a meal.
So the social place.
Yes, it was. Although I would say probably up Wynn's was more so, because they were actually overlooking the harbour, so it was beautiful up there. And that was a part of the treats that kids would have, to go out for lunch and have a pie.
At the store?
At the store, but possibly more so uptown at Wynn's, because of that, being able to have a window seat and look over the harbour and see all those things coming in.
And so what was the sort of demographic of people who were shopping at the store?
I think everybody. I do think everybody. But mainly we were just working class people. There weren't any silvertails much around.
Yeah, because I found it interesting when you mentioned before your mother saying, the store was a big support system in a way for people.
We knew that. We sort of knew that, because as we're growing up, and there's strikes on, and people when they grew their own vegetables, and there were people who had fowl, chooks, and they'd get eggs, buy eggs from them. And there was a lot of things going on like that around the place. So, but the store would stick by you. Yeah. And so when I went to Melbourne, etc., I dropped the store. But then when I came back, I rejoined.
And what years were they?
Well, when I came back, it would have been in the 1960s. And I used to book just about everything up to the store, and I'd pay my bill with my paycheck. So and they'd give me all the change. So I think.
Is there anything about these books that you wanted to explain?
Well, this is our divvy books, and this is where this is my divvy book, which was going since 61, and so that was when I came back and to Newcastle, and so the divvy was being put in. At one stage was 9p in the pound. Yep. Although somewhere it goes to dollars, of course. There. Anyway, that's right. These were our tokens, where you book things up. Mm-hmm. So you just showed those, and they had a machine. And this was their hire purchase thing. This was when I was saying Dad was paying something off. Don't know if I can exactly see. 1961.
So there was payment receipts?
I think he was paying off this expensive television set. I think that was what he was paying off. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and when over a certain amount they had to put those stamps on.
Mm. Why was that?
That was just government wanting more money. Mm-hmm. They can always find ways and means. Mm-hmm. And that's a store order that he put in. All the things that he was after, the Rinso and the tins of peaches and tins of this and tins of that.
Sugar, butter, the shopping list basically.
A shopping list, that's right.
And did he ever get these delivered? Or?
Oh yes, every time.
Every time.
Yeah, every time. And this is the other store book that belonged to Velma. That was Don's first wife. Mm-hmm. And yeah. So, okay. I was very angry that the store closed. I know, I don't know if anybody else has said this, but a lot of the employees told people, their friends, anybody, to get your money out of the store because it's going bust. And so there was a run on the store. But nobody told me that, so I didn't. And I was all set to put more money in the store to support it, to bring it out of this. But of course that wasn't going to happen. There was there were some people standing for the store board who wanted to save the store, or appeared to. They did want to, but when they had a look at the books, they just changed their mind and said it was impossible. Got everything. I eventually got all my money back. I did. So it never owed me a thing, but all my divvy money, I mean. But to me, it was very, very sad.
I guess keeping on with those sort of earlier memories, I wanted to know what your impressions were of the store building and the inside of the store. If you could describe what it looked like.
Well, it had everything there. It had, I didn't mention hardware, but it had hardware there when it came to, going to do your place up a bit. You went and got your paint and everything else at the store and booked it up. So my memories of the store was on the ground floor. That was where there was the hardware part. So that looked like a hardware part. And then as you went through that ground floor, but then when you went up into the ladies section, of course I had memories of that where it was all rather glamorous and lovely clothes, really lovely clothes and lovely materials to buy. Everything, as I say, was top class. So it was quite glamorous. And then I can't really remember going to the hall where they had I can't remember ever going to a wedding there or anything like that. Yeah. But it was quite lovely, yeah.
And was it a social place for you as well? Or were you, using the cafeteria, did you meet friends there? Or Or
Well,
was it mainly just a practical place?
Oh, well, it was a practical place. I can't remember, as I say, maybe when Mum was around, we might have had. In fact, my mum's her last day, she was going to the store. She and she went to get to her friend, who my mother wasn't well, so she went in with her, and anyway, so she shopped at the store later on after she had actually had a coronary and died, but her groceries and her things were there that she had just bought at the store. Yeah.
They'd been
Yeah.
delivered?
No. She just had a few things in her bag. Yeah. And paying her bills, that was what she was doing. She was mainly going in with her friend to pay the bills. Yeah. So they would have met and had a cup of tea there and had and then come back. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you remember about the people who worked for the store?
Well, they were a very interesting lot. They were. You would always have a nice conversation. After Mum died, Dad was the store person, and he developed a lovely friendship with all those girls at Mayfield. They knew him too. You know, he'd have a little, an older gentleman having a bit of a flirt, you know, all that sort of thing, and they told me one day when I had his token to buy something, and they said to me, "Your father spoiled you." And I couldn't say anything else. He did. He did. But yes, I remember that they were particularly lovely to him. They had a lovely friendship going. Yeah. But for me, it was probably more business and a bit of a chat, you know, because I was busy in those days. Yeah.
And do you remember any particular people who worked at the Mayfield branch, anyone by name? Or?
No, I don't. I sort of remember different people socially that worked there, and they, tobacco. I can remember this chap saying he worked there during the war, and what he did was everybody actually could get ration for tobacco, and he didn't smoke, but he'd collect all this tobacco and then he'd raffle it and make a killing out of it. But I'm sure he was a very nice man. But that's a memory he left with me. But I know, well, they were all very nice and pleasant, and I'm sure that was what they were meant to be. As I say, the bread was delivered, but there was no great hygiene. You know, there was the horse, and there was the bread basket, and there was not wrapped in plastic or anything, but the bread was beautiful, and you could smell it. Oh, it was gorgeous, you know, and kids would break it in half and take some of the middle part off because it was just so gorgeous. Yes.
And you got your bread delivered all the way?
Oh, yes. Yes, the bread was delivered. Yes. Well, especially when my mum got sick, everything, you know, was mainly to be delivered. Yes.
That's a very good service, you know.
That's right. And then we bought our first, of course, when Mum was sick then, Dad wanted to have everything, and it was only just sort of fairly newly out was the television. So we bought, you know, one of the first televisions in the street. And so I've got some receipts there, so I guess it could be paying that off because it seemed to be a big thing that he was paying off. Anyway, so we got one of the first televisions in the street, and I know one day when I was coming home from work, there's all these kids, because they'd all knock on the door to come in to watch television in the afternoon, because that was the only, and of course now when we actually look at it was snowy. The reception was shocking. It was shocking. But we didn't know that. We thought it was pretty good. People would actually line up in the street to watch the television that was on in shop windows. And, we were very simple people then.
Yeah, speaking of the windows, maybe if you could say a bit more about what you remember of the Christmas displays.
Well, I sort of remember a lot of them were to do with displaying something to do with a nursery rhyme or, Three Bears or something like that. But it was always different, and it was always, as I say, a lot of effort put into things. But in those days, people did put a lot of effort into things. When I went to work at the lamp works, when I was a photometric electrical laboratory assistant, they used to put on a review, the Elmer Review, and they spent a lot of time rehearsing for that and having Christmas parties. And so a lot of work was really done around Christmas, a community stuff. It was really, I guess there was a lot of community around then. It was lovely. Yeah.
So, and you remember everyone coming to see the unveiling of the windows and that sort of thing?
Well, I do remember we certainly made sure we went to see the windows, and there was always something. I mean, more so when you were a kid, but then you appreciated the arty bit of it when you were an older person. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you still have anything a major or special purchase that you made?
I read that, but I don't think I have. I mean, all the television set I mentioned, that's gone to God a long time ago.
Yeah.
And all of the electrical stuff would have gone. And for clothes, I haven't got anything that, I've got some old clothes, but nothing that actually came from that era at the store.
So what were your most memorable purchases? I know you said you took...
Oh, beautiful dresses, mainly. Beautiful dresses. Absolutely everything. And mainly, well, dresses were worn a lot in those days. But, dresses, shoes, all the things that young people love. Yeah. And as I say, you could just shop there and be happy shopping there. Yeah.
So they had a variety.
Oh, they did. So they had some good buyers wherever they bought things from. Yeah.
Did you ever go to I know they had fashion shows and stuff.
I did. No, you said that. I did.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, for a long time I had a dress that I had bought that I saw on a model, and it was a diagonally striped blue and white dress, and it wouldn't have looked anything particularly on a model, and I had that for years. I wore that until I couldn't wear it anymore. That I wore it out, really, and I still do that with stuff.
It should be able to be worn.
Oh yes, but I've got a top out there, and it's got it's just starting to show a little bit of fray on the edge. But I've had that for about 30 years, and I love it. Every time I put it on, I feel good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember, I guess, as the store sort of like, its fortune sort of changed over the years.
Yeah.
And it started to struggle.
Go down.
Do you remember your experience at the store changing as those?
The only thing I remember particularly, because the quality still stayed, the only thing I remember particularly was the dividends started to go down, and then none. But that, of course, didn't stop me from using it, but it might have stopped some people. And as I say, there was this run on the store, which possibly was the reason really why it, run on anything is so destructive. And but I, as I say, I would have still shopped at the store. I still shopped at the Mayfield store, and used it, as I say, for even paying my bills, my store bill, and getting with my paycheck and getting them to cash my check. In other words, I always did right up to the end. I was still buying at the store.
So you didn't notice. Did you notice a decline anywhere, or when did you start noticing?
No, not. Well, I didn't really notice it. because, as I say, I still used it for whatever I could use it for. And they had, by that time, had put in their own supermarkets, which maybe I didn't use much because I know that the supermarket wasn't cheap. but I used it for other things, still clothes, still underwear, still anything at all. Yeah.
And how did the community react to the store's sort of changing fortunes?
Well, I think they didn't respond like I would have, where I would have put more money in. They were taking it out. But they always had a fondness for the store, as witnessed by that window that you saw in one of the competitors talking about the store. But now when you look at all, they're all gone, all of those big shops really in Newcastle. Yeah. But as far as I was concerned, I was devoted. And of course, the board men that went in with the idea of saving the store, I was all in favour of them, and felt a bit betrayed when they said, "Oh, it couldn't be saved." I really felt betrayed by that. And then when it was in the doldrums for a while, and then when it was bought, and people really responded to the store opening up again. The streets were packed. There was no parking anywhere. There were crowds of people went in to the.
This is when it was sold.
When it had been sold and it opened up, and there were things like Franklin's there, and there were a few things that you could still buy, but of course it wasn't like the old store.
Did you go to the opening? Or?
I think I probably did, because I was living. Was I living here at the time? Maybe not, but I certainly did go to the opening, and I yeah.
And did you visit any of the other branches other than Mayfield?
Well, Mayfield and in town would have been the main things. Mayfield was quite good, very good, and of course in town still was the main one. Yeah. Mainly, I remember, this is really digressing, but a friend Dorothy and I, we were at that stage. I think we were working away, but come home here for the weekend to Mayfield, and we were in shopping in the store. Then when we got out and the thing was closed, we looked back and there was a man locked in there, and he's saying he'll kick it in. No. We say no. We'll ring up, all sign language. We'll ring up. We'll go in to get the. Yeah. Anyway, we went across. I think he got told the police. One of us stayed with him to sort of try to calm him down, because he's inside. We can't hear anything. We could just see what he is. And also then the police, well, they seemed to do nothing, but they actually did get in touch with whoever was the key holder. But in the meantime, we're trying to talk to him. We're telling him actually there was a back way he could get out, walking and back and eating vegetables or something. Anyway, it's all sign language. And the reason I say that is because he got out and he's very grateful, but he doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak English, but we communicated so well just with sign language and telling him what to do and how to car. And but anyway, yes, there you are. Somebody was locked in.
And he was just a customer. He
was a customer, yes, that's right, who lived up in the migrant centre, who didn't know it closed at 12 o'clock, of course, and it was at a Saturday. And so he was locked in, yeah.
And so the store appealed to the sort of migrant.
I think it would. Yes. Yeah. Well, it was probably the Mayfield one was the first shop that they really landed on once they left the migrants' places, and so they would have go in there, and it was people were nice and helpful. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I know you sort of touched on it before, but what was the best thing to you about visiting the store?
Well, it was certainly the friendly attitude of everybody. It was welcoming. It was like home. So I guess that was what it was all about. It had a home feeling.
And yeah, what do you mean by that?
Well, they cashed my cheques. They did anything I wanted them to do. Not like businesses now, you've got to do it their way. But no, the store would try and do it your way, yeah, and be helpful. And you knew you could trust them, yeah. So, yeah, they were home, yeah.
And you've lived in this part of town in Wickham for how long? When did you both move here?
Oh, well, we shifted here. Well, Don started his effort 94. The railway were very good to us, and they would do whatever he asked. He wanted curbing put in there, which on the street, so we could extend the garden out into the street a bit. But then, of course, these cars all started to park and make it very difficult. But anyway, we did have a very pretty garden for a long time. We had a sign up, Beresford Garden, that Don had made.
And how has this, what are your impressions of how this little bit of Newcastle West has changed in the last 15 years since you've moved here?
It was beautiful until, well, I mean, I don't have to look at too much of it, and I have lost a lot of my prejudices about it, because we put up with a lot of dirt and noise and everything else while all this was being done. Yeah, it was very noisy and dirty, and could hardly go out there on that balcony, apart from Sundays when they didn't work. So I'm afraid that they're going to just muck it all up. They're going to muck up this part of town. They got the idea of the up the top of town is the historical part, they see. And then the civic area, well, that's the cultural sign. And here, well, it's got the reputation, I think, of putting everything in. Some things would be good, but some things would be overdone. And when I'm looking at apartments now, I'm starting to think that they're just being made for the profit. And because I rather like real estate, and I like looking at real estate, and I'm seeing rooms that are very pokey, and it's just built to sell or to rent or whatever, and then people get out. But it's not going to be, to my mind, yet. But if I make a mistake, I'll admit it. But they're just going to destroy everything. And with that in mind, just across the way there is the School of Arts that was built in, I've got the date there, but it was about the 1890s by actually the same architects that did the first store, which was just there on the corner of Florence and Hunter Street. Before that one, yes, when it was just a tiny store. And so it was the same architects that built this. And this down here, this School of Arts, it went back to the 1890 something. And it had a stage in it. They had gas lights. They had people putting on shows, no doubt, dressing rooms. And also too, of course, the educational part. There's a quote in some stuff I've got there from Henry Lawson that says, he says other things, but he says something like, while in Wickham I try to improve my knowledge while going to the School of Arts. So the School of Arts, it was used until about this 1990, 8, 9.
So since you were living here?
Yes, that's right. When we were living here, it was Leicester's Gym, which I didn't go to, of course, but lots of people did go to Leicester's Gym. But when it was closing down, they had a bit of a sell-off of stuff. And So what we bought there was this picture of Henry Lawson up here, which is autographed, which would have been given by him to the School of Arts. And so that was, and I haven't seen any other pictures like that. I've seen lots of pictures of Henry Lawson, but that's the only one that looks like that. Yes, so we did go to that sort of farewell. So I think that would be very sad if that goes myself, but I'm so used to being disillusioned now by everything else that's happening around here that, mind you, I'm not going to leave.
You've got a great spot.
I've still got a good spot, yes. Yeah, so I'm not going to leave, but I'm not happy really with whatever their plan is. I think there's greed involved. So.
And you live, really right diagonal to the old store.
Yes,
so
that's right.
You would have seen its physical demise and demolition.
That's right.
And what are your impressions of that process?
Well, I couldn't believe it was all going just like that. Nothing was being saved. Not the facade or anything. Nothing to show what was there. And, another generation or so, people won't know anything about it. I think it's just so sad that we destroy things. I had a friend who was renting in Mayfield, and she was saying something to her next door neighbour, who was a migrant from Italy, and he said to her, "I don't know what's wrong with you people. My mother lives in a house that's 200 years old. You lot want to tear everything down once it gets to 50 years old or so." So I think that's a tragedy that we do that. And when you go to a suburb like Mayfield, that's still got a lot of old character. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So what would you like to have been done differently with the store?
The store, I would have liked at least the facade to be kept. I know progress is going to happen, and but just to annihilate it and turn it into something that's just so foreign to what it was all about, I think is so sad. The destruction of our memories, I think, is so sad, and that's what's happening. Yeah.
So what do you think the legacy of the store is to the Newcastle community?
Well, I think a lot of people have got wonderful memories of it, and the reasons it was there, its philosophy was good, but whether that'll amount to a row of beans for future generations, I doubt. I think it's sad.
What does it mean for you these days?
To see that empty space. Well, it just means it's just sad. It's just sad. As I say, I can't believe that we didn't make a stand for it. And I wonder if my husband was still around, being a goer person, he might have made a bit of a stand. But I sort of could see the sense in finishing the light rail, the heavy rail there, but I would have been just as happy with the loop bus going around. Mind you, when I've been on that tram, it is very nice, and you will like it when you go on it. It stops. I was really glad to see honeysuckle was being mentioned, because it was actually the first station here. Our first, there was something going past here since about 1857. That line was built from Honeysuckle to Maitland, and I believe it was the second built in the colony. The first one being down there from Redfern to Parramatta, but the second one was here, mainly because of the coal, I suppose. But anyway, the first stop after you get on is Honeysuckle, so I was really pleased to see that being recognised. Honeysuckle was there until 1935. This one here, Wickham, opened in 1935. So, because this friend wrote this poem about Don and I, and it's called The Gardeners. Annette and Don are celebrity because they've been planting some flowers and trees. Geraniums, daisies, bloom side by side. Annette and Don are aglow with pride as they pull out the weeds and plant the seeds that will flourish and attract the birds and the bees. So if you're passing by in a train, admire the garden that Wickham has gained, called Beresford Garden. What a lovely scene, and it's helping to make our city green. Oh, it's my pleasure. Delightful ladies come. Yeah.